Good evening, everyone. This is Sanctuary, episode 28, June 27th of 2022. I'm Marcia, and I'm flying solo again tonight. My co-host Tom is without a stable internet connection, but he is with us in spirit. For him, I will say greetings and love, everyone out there, and to everyone who is listening in right now. Just really appreciate you being on the call and listening in the replay beyond. So tonight for our light transmission from spirit, we're going to be talking about mastering our emotions. And some of the questions that have come up are, what emotions are rising into our awareness? How is this energy and motion reflecting back to us? Important information that we need to know. And what are some of the ways that we can move this energy so that we do not become attached or over-identified with the emotions, and they start to kind of take us into a downward spiral. And so the supporting energies tonight are that Spirit is really encouraging us to strengthen our gifts, that our gifts are something that was God-given, and that when we focus on our talents and we focus on the things that bring us joy and really light us up and activate us, we're actually following our spirit. And Spirit said that in strengthening our gifts, we begin to open and fashion a life for ourselves that is centered around that energy. And we're also going to be talking tonight about courage and what it means to be courageous in our collective society right now, as well as being an Earthkeeper and what that means, and how these all tie into mastering our emotional fields right now. And you'll notice as I go throughout the reading tonight that I'm going to be using a lot of lyrics. And sometimes Spirit finds the song lyrics that are popping up as I'm doing the reading to be the most direct way to bring some of these more abstract concepts across, as well as a way to acknowledge the human experience and the fact that from the spirit perspective, all is well and always is going to be well. But from the human perspective, that may not always feel like the case. And so Spirit wants to acknowledge that. Awesome. Yes, we got some chat out there saying lyrics are their fave. So Spirit wants to acknowledge that this is hard. This is really challenging, especially from the linear perspective, and wants to offer us that wider, more, eagle view perspective so that we can navigate these stormy waters and actually have some vitality and life force and creative potential and thriving during the process. So the very first lyric that came through in the reading was, I'm building up the strength, but lately I've been weak as ever. It's scary to admit that this could be the end for forever. I'm losing all my hope. It's harder when the end gets closer. I'm scared of letting go, moving on, getting older. And this feeling from Spirit that the human understands that things are not what they used to be, and that we may not have the language for it, but we instinctively feel that a shift is occurring. And this is causing the personality self and the ego matrix to over-identify with some of our limited belief systems in order to feel a perceived sense of control in a time where we actually do not have any. And so Spirit wants us to know that, we might be feeling weak as ever, but it always gets harder when the end gets closer. And right now we're moving towards the end of one paradigm and the beginning of the next. In fact, we're in the end of one and the beginning of a next. They are overlapping. And Spirit wants us to know that we are reclaiming our soul memory, and the Christed matrix is anchoring through the individuals who are living aligned with Spirit and the integrity of their own souls. The wise fool within us is teaching us through life's follies to be right place, right time in the weave. And what Spirit means by that is, sometimes on the human level, we come up against these obstacles or these challenges in life. And Spirit is saying that actually sometimes this is the wise fool within us teaching us how to be right place, right time. Because when we are oriented to the mental self or to the ego's agenda, we're going to try to be following, that mental outline of our life. And so sometimes the wise fool has to trip us up through that trickster energy in order to get us to be where we're supposed to be. And Spirit says that we're encouraged that the light codes that are streaming onto the planet right now might be unsettling trapped emotions and bringing them to the surface. But we can be encouraged because even though we may feel agitated or kind of rubbed or grated against at the level of soul, this is actually leading to greater mastery. And it may translate on the human level to fluctuating emotions. And Spirit reminds us that the mastery at this time is to allow these emotional fluctuations. And we talked on the call last week about this practice of giving these emotions 90 seconds, because when we're in them, they feel so intense and so overwhelming. And the mind wants to project them out and out and out into the future, or kind of cling to things from the past and say, well, it's happening all over again. But if we actually sit with them for 90 seconds and fully sit with them, fully give them the space to talk, either through, pen to paper journaling or through, movement through the body, or, even vocal expression, even yelling, whatever it is that we need to do that's not harming ourselves or harming another. Spirit is saying, give it that 90 seconds, because we often will find that it's enough to waterfall and move through us, and that we don't have to identify or attach to these emotions. Rather, we allow them to pass through us and instead observe. And Spirit says we also can treat this as information and ask it, what do you have to say? That when we give voice to these parts of ourselves, we allow ourselves freedom and room to breathe. And we're encouraged to engage in this stream of consciousness writing at this time, which is a way to move our energy and anchor in our true will and intent, because it bypasses the conscious mind. And we can talk more about that as we move further into the reading. But Spirit wants us to know that right now we are shifting agreements, which we talked about last week. And we're releasing ourselves from the stories and the opinions of others, as well as the collective narrative. And one thing that Spirit will bring up often is that, many times the human wants to go and ask everyone's opinion before we make a decision, where in reality that begins to, unless we're, speaking to people who are present individuals, most people are going to give us their mental opinion on something. And Spirit says that this can actually cloud our auric field and create confusion and anxiety. And so we have to shift this agreement of relying on others for our decision making and instead turn inward. And we're also reminded from Spirit that as we begin to feel these emotional fluctuations and the intensity that it brings, to not make decisions from these highly emotional states. Spirit actually said, do not feed the archons, in the way that you would see, like, do not feed the bears at the zoo. And is challenging us to remember that our lower vibrational emotional states, when left unchecked, not only cause us to spiral downward mentally, emotionally, and physically eventually, but also provide food for the archonic lower vibrational spiritual forces. So Spirit says, instead, we must treat these surges of emotion as information, stimuli. What does it want to say? We are connecting with ancient and ancestral memories and key codes through these emotional states. So this is important. These are not just, something is wrong with us. Spirit is saying we're connecting to information and stimuli, which is giving us needed information. And we're encouraged once again that this is an excellent time to put pen to paper and allow these aspects of voice. In doing so, we are releasing ourselves from any torment or suffering that the personality may incur from these emotional surges. And it's time to trust our instinctual, intuitive navigational system that exists within each of us, as we each have our own unique connection to love, source awareness, God, great wisdom, whatever we want to call the nameless. And the final lyrics in this part of the meditation were, we've got time, but we're only human. So this feeling from Spirit that we already know the ending. We already know that love wins, but we do have time, and we're giving ourselves the opportunity, the allowance to experience our God selves through the human experience, through the time-space continuum. And so we're going to come up against these confrontations on a linear level because they are helping us actually ascend and evolve into that greater, more expanded self. So I'm going to take a moment right now and check the chat. I noticed something came through when I was speaking. If there's anything else that you guys want to speak to regarding what just came through, or anything that's coming up within your hearts to speak to, please feel free to jump in. Yeah, Mimi said her whole horoscope for tomorrow is about listening to your higher self. And Mimi from Gaia Blooming, we talked about her last week. Definitely check her out. She gives amazing guidance, how to use astrology to help us navigate these times. So thank you for that. So Spirit wants to talk about what is going on planet Earth right now that could be contributing to our emotional fluctuations. You're going to love this part. So we have strife, flames of controversy, competition of forces, aggressiveness, trespass, going beyond, opposing desires, ambitious decisions, fights, breaking contractual relationship, clashes, destructions and contradictions, deception, betrayal, ambiguity, false choice, deceit, arrogance, disrespect to others, cruelty, reckless behavior, destructive thoughts, loss, separation, ill health, and severe stress. So these are the things that if we are in the soup of what is collectively going on, these are some of the amazing emotions we're going to get to experience. And so Spirit gives these to us to let us know that we don't actually have to engage in them other than to be aware of them. And so for the next part of this reading, it was all different lyrics from different songs that Spirit wanted to speak to the human condition that is relating to these lower vibrational energies. The first was, I don't really want to fight anymore. I don't really want to fake it no more. And this feeling from the human that it's exhausted. It's exhausted of wearing this outward persona that is not reflecting its inner core. And it's exhausted from the fight and the conflict that has really been in our face, especially for the last like 5 to 7 years, but really amped up in the last 2 years. The next lyrics here were mixed emotions are congregating, and Spirit acknowledging that moment to moment we may be feeling happy, might be feeling sad, might be feeling rage. All of these things are being asked to be held as one and to be allowed. We will talk about often when we're talking about the Christos energy that we need the full human spectrum of emotion in order to fully anchor that. And so these mixed emotions congregating is part of the process. The next lyric was, I've been feeling lonely. I need someone to hold me. I've been feeling jaded. Don't know how I should play it. Living in a haze, staying in the shade. All I do is sit around and wait for better days. I could use a break. Can I get an amen? All I do is sit around and wait for better days. And this feeling that Spirit is acknowledging that on the human egoic level, if you're not tapped in to yourself, your soul, and your greater source, that it's going to feel like living in a haze right now. It'd be very lonely and jaded because the outer world is not giving us much that is uplifting. And the next lyrics were, because when you finally understand what it is, what's love these days, heartbreak so much, we don't give an F. And so once again, this feeling that Spirit is acknowledging that, people are giving up. There's just so much heartbreak. And that came from the song No Idea and by Mary J. Blige. And the feeling from Spirit here was it's because we have no idea of this grander awareness. Because if we did, we wouldn't be kind of like stuck or maintaining a vibration that was within this space. The very next lyrics were, someone said I was dangerous. I said something bad that must have been good. Somebody said I was dangerous. I must be getting too close to the truth. I'm not talking wishful thinking. I'm talking about calling them out on their lies. And Spirit acknowledging that the veils are getting very thin and the bad actors or the powers that were that previously could kind of slip one over on the good people of humanity, that is wearing very thin right now, and rightly so, all according to this divine plan. The lyrics, the more I see, the less I know. Everything seems to be tearing me apart. One minute I'm up, the next I'm down. You got me so turned around, running through the dark. And Spirit's acknowledgement that as we're feeling our way through the dark here, that, we're moving through these fluctuating emotions. One minute we're up, the next we're down. The more we see, the less we know. And so this acknowledgement that if we're only focused on this outer world, it will be tearing us apart right now. And so the guidance or the wisdom that Spirit offers us is that this chessboard that we are viewing is held in love. First, the darkness makes a move, then the light. From the human perspective, this causes incongruence. From Spirit's perspective, this is a divine dance, an erosion of that which does not serve the soul, an awakening of the collective human heart. Through conflict, internal and external, one remembers sovereignty and begins to make decisions from a connected space. In alignment with Spirit and Mother Earth, it appears messy, as all learning often does. Trust in the process. Spend time with the earth. Connect with her heartbeat. She will guide you into your soul and into her soul. True. The world will fall away. It will sort itself out in perfect harmony, in accordance with divine love and law. Spirit wants us to know that while we are feeling all of these heavy emotions as a collective, we are actually moving towards peace, equilibrium, relaxation, thoughtfulness, honest talks, compromise and conflict resolution, living in harmony with others and spiritual awakening, finding happiness and fulfillment within, emotional recovery, well-being, enormous creative potential, enjoying our work, sensual pleasure and satisfaction, and finding our center. So wanting to give us the bigger picture here so that we can understand that while all of these things are true and all of these things are happening, there's always that truer reality, that reality with a capital R, that we are able to tap into when we are in co-creation with our own soul and with Spirit. So I'm going to give a moment now for the floor to be open before we move on to the next piece. One of the supporting energies this evening for managing or mastering our emotional state is that we're really encouraged to focus on our gifts and our talents and to examine what is important to our spirit and forget the rest. And what spirit means here is that, each of us has a spirit that is moving through us. And often we allow the world to dictate what we need to be doing that day or what we need to be focused on. And Spirit says that when we actually examine what is important to our spirit and forget the rest, especially when we focus on our talents and gifts and identify what we need to do to strengthen them, we are actually creating a new blueprint, a new template for ourselves that allows life to come up and support us and uplift us. And Spirit wants us to know that these are Spirit's gifts through us to the world. And we're encouraged to not let the negativity of the world override or sabotage our commitment to ourselves, and as well to avoid any drama-filled conversations that may be having a demoralizing effect on us. So we've been encouraged over and over again since November to really attune to our light body, to the energy body, and to not waste that energy on anything that is not an equal reciprocity or things that might be meaningless pursuits in the sense that we're always giving and they are unable to give back to us. We're encouraged to believe in ourselves and to remain faithful and consistent to our dreams. This is incredibly important right now. As we master our talents, we are patient as more demands are asked of us. And this is not to, get us into a fear state. This is actually the accountability and responsibility that comes from being in our integrity and from being connected to the soul and to the spirit within ourselves, which actually allows us to focus and master our talents much faster because we don't have the incessant distractions of the ego, which is always focusing on the past or the future. Spirit also wants us to know that our divine helpers are working beside us and the efforts will be well worth it in the long run. We always do need to ask when we want divine support. It's always, right there for us, but because this is a free will universe, that does require that we ask for this help. So that strengthening our gifts, focusing on our talents, when we start to feel like we're being kind of pulled under the weave, this is one of those little breadcrumbs from Spirit. It's like, what can I do right now that's going to be an offering, to be of service to the world in some way? And it doesn't need to be big. it can be very, very simple, very small, but some of those simple, small things, like smiling at someone or holding the door or picking up, trash as we come across it on the sidewalk, these things actually um, make big splashes or big impacts in the energetic realm. So before I move on to the next theme, is there anything that you all would like to talk about? Come on, y'all. The next theme is be courageous. We don't have anybody on the line tonight. No, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate everyone being here. I can feel everyone's energy, whether we're talking or whether we're, just listening and being silent. All of it is coming forth. All of it is creating this really beautiful container. So I jest. But it is our next topic, be courageous. And Spirit wants us to know that right now the human ego is intimidated and it kind of wants to run from the challenge ahead because it feels terrifying and looming to the human ego, to the mind, which on some level understands that it does not have what it's going to take to be able to navigate where we're moving. But Spirit wants us to not let fear stop us from living in the truth of our own spirit. And sometimes that can be really challenging because, often our spirit doesn't necessarily want to do what the rest of society thinks is appropriate or thinks we should be doing. And so the ego fears judgment and it feels being ostracized. I'm going to try to pronounce that right now. It fears being pushed out. It fears not being related. And so, we have to pray for the courage and the strength that we actually need to stand in our sovereign self, because one of us who is doing it right now, we know that it's not always easy. But we can trust that when God is with us, nothing is against us, as nothing is greater than the divine. All is playing within the divine. And it brings me back to, Spirit talking about us all being on this chessboard right now. And if you're looking at it from, one of the pieces perspective, it's going to look really scary, especially, if you're the one being taken off the board. But from Spirit's perspective, all of this is happening within a divine cauldron. And so we can trust when we feel that gumption rise up in us. We've all had those moments where something's prompting us or nudging us to say something or to do something or to be, somewhere maybe we weren't intending or planning on being. And it's very easy in those moments to say, I have to do this, or, I just don't have the time, or this is inconvenient for me. And yet, if we really want to live in alignment with Spirit and with our own soul, we will be called to be courageous, and we will be called to maintain our integrity and to be accountable to the weave, to this greater energy at all times, because that is what is required of those of us who are choosing to live as this divine conduit of grace. And we can trust that, even though we're feeling fear, courage is always available to us. In fact, courage is usually not available unless we're feeling fear. And so Spirit wants us to know that it's always available. Pray for it. And it's accessible to us in this now moment. The next lyrics were, so tell me what good is life if we're all just waiting to dance in the sky? I'm already there, here in your arms. Rest in peace. They say it's better, but how can that be? If everyone had a love like this, they wouldn't call that place heaven. And this is a kind of a love song from Spirit through these lyrics of, we are bringing heaven to earth. This is the first time that humanity's consciousness can be expanded enough to bring these frequencies into the earth plane. And we may not be, wishing for heaven once we begin fully experiencing these frequencies moving through our body, because we are going to feel at one with ourselves, with each other, and with the earth in ways that the personality self has never experienced. And we're working out the complexities of the Divine Mother, the Divine Father, and the Divine Child archetypes through the energy of the conflicts and the chaos which is happening on our planet right now. And so the last piece that Spirit wants to speak to is the emergence of the Earthkeeper. And we talk about it in all sorts of ways of this divine conduit or being a steward, being a guardian, being an Earthkeeper. What it means is that we are now consciously responsible for our co-creation with Spirit, and we're living in dedicated stewardship to the earth and all of life. And we're also recognizing, Spirit says, the hijack for what it is, which means that the powers that were have a sense of the organic blueprint, and because of that, they've learned how to distort it, hijack it. So when you are a being of good intent, it's easy to get stuck in the groupthink or the hive mind agendas without even realizing it, because you're simply just trying to do the right thing. And so Spirit is really asking us recognize the hijacks for what they are, because these are distortions of the organic blueprint. And those of us who can, see, have eyes to see and ears to hear, as Spirit calls it, we are choosing to hold the sacred dream of the planet where all beings are living in peace. All the rivers and air are clean. Spirit wants us to know this is our divine destiny, and yet we must dream this into being. So it's already done, and we are the ones doing it. So that doesn't mean, we're just sitting back and putting our feet up. It means that we are allowing God to move through us in order to hold this sacred dream, in order to be an embodiment of it on this planet. Everything we do now not only has an impact for many generations, Spirit wants us to know it actually reaches into the multiverse and is allowing for a great shift in consciousness throughout. We've outgrown our small dreams of success, and we are ready to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So if you're someone out there who is starting to feel the hollowness of, getting to the top of your field or achieving all the dreams and goals that you had for yourself and still feeling like you missed the big point, Spirit wants us to know that it's time for us to move into greater service and to offer these talents and successes into something bigger than ourselves, into a service-oriented way. And that in doing so, there will be possibilities and opportunities offered to us beyond our wildest expectations. However, they may not come from within the system that we are comfortable with or used to. New systems that serve the soul are being developed and anchored on planet Earth. Our question right now to ask is, how can I contribute? In what way can I serve? We're being encouraged to reach out to anyone or someone in need, or even just simply someone we may not have been in touch with for some time. So this, from Spirit's perspective, usually means that we need to create some new weaves, and particularly with old friends or old companions, people that were special to us at one time. Rekindling those connections can often cause massive shifts in our personal weave in our everyday life. And once again, we're encouraged to clean up the yard, pick up trash within the community, to take care of our pets, and to treat any animals that cross our paths with reverence and respect, to acknowledge that these are messengers that often come with wisdom from the divine realms. We need to remember we are growing the sacred dream between heaven and earth, and as we do so, we will watch our lives flourish. The lyrics, "Our darkness turns to gold." We are releasing the me and opening to the I. As we care for our bodies, we care for Mother Earth, and we begin with the stewardship of our own health. The question Spirit asks, are we feeding on food or thoughts that are not good for our body and mind? And this doesn't mean like mentally, like what isn't good for you, like what society says is not good for you eating wise. Spirit actually always encourages us to eat what the body, what brings the body joy and also allows it to feel good. Because we all know sometimes things that bring it joy don't always make it feel so good. And so we're encouraged to feed on the things that bring us joy. And that includes thoughts as well. What are we digesting through social media, through the news, through the internet, through our friends and colleagues, etc. This is all something that Spirit really wants us to pay attention to. And Spirit says that when you do what you know is good for your health today, to know that we are doing it for Mother Earth herself. So that was the end of the transmission that Spirit wanted to bring through tonight. I'm going to take a moment and open the floor for any discussion. And if there isn't anything, we can always close down and do the question and answer after the call. Just want to thank you all so much for being here tonight, for creating this container, for supporting me in my solo endeavoring. And we will take about 30 seconds to connect and close down and thank Spirit and Source Awareness for this space, the grace we had to be together tonight. And I will be available after the call for any questions and answers or anything that we want to discuss that was just not for this recorded part. So thank you all so much for being here, and I will be back with you in just a moment.